Welcome back to another episode of Pod Talks. I'm your host, Jack, and today we have a special treat for you. Joining us is Julia, who recently completed an incredible journey visiting all the top tourist spots in America. Julia, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jack. It's great to be here and share my experiences.
So, Julia, you've just finished an epic tour of America's most iconic tourist destinations. Let's start with the big one, New York City. How was your experience in the Big Apple?
New York City was everything I imagined and more. The energy of Times Square is just electric. There's always something happening, and the lights at night are dazzling. I also loved visiting the Statue of Liberty and Ellis Island. The history there is so rich and moving. And Central Park is a perfect escape from the city's hustle and bustle.
Central Park is a gem. It's amazing how you can be in such a peaceful, green space right in the middle of a bustling city. Did you get a chance to see a Broadway show?
I did. I saw Hamilton, and it was phenomenal. The performances were top-notch, and the atmosphere in the theater was incredible. Broadway is definitely a must-do when you're in New York.
Absolutely. Moving on from the East Coast, let's talk about the West Coast. How was your experience in California?
California was fantastic. Los Angeles was a highlight with its mix of glamour and laid-back vibes. Visiting the Hollywood Walk of Fame and the Griffith Observatory were standout moments. And, of course, Disneyland is always magical. But my favorite part of California was the drive along the Pacific Coast Highway. The views are breathtaking, especially around Big Sur.
The Pacific Coast Highway is on my bucket list. Those views look stunning. Did you make it to San Francisco?
Yes, I did. San Francisco has such a unique charm. The Golden Gate Bridge is even more impressive in person, and taking a ferry to Alcatraz Island was fascinating. The city's steep streets and iconic cable cars give it a character like no other place.
San Francisco sounds amazing. Let's not forget about the natural wonders. Did you visit any national parks?
I did. Yellowstone National Park was one of the highlights of my trip. The geysers, hot springs, and wildlife make it feel like another world. I also visited the Grand Canyon, which is absolutely awe-inspiring. Standing on the edge and looking out over that vast expanse is a humbling experience.
Yellowstone and the Grand Canyon are both incredible. It's amazing how diverse America's landscapes are. Did you get to explore any other natural wonders?
Yes, I went to Yosemite National Park as well. The granite cliffs, waterfalls, and giant sequoias are stunning. Hiking to the top of Half Dome was challenging, but worth every step for the view. And the Great Smoky Mountains on the East Coast were beautiful, especially in the fall with all the foliage.
Hiking Half Dome is quite an achievement. Shifting gears a bit, how about some of the cultural and historical spots? Did you visit any notable museums or landmarks?
Absolutely, the Smithsonian Museums in Washington, D.C. are a must-visit. There's so much to see, from the Air and Space Museum to the American History Museum. I also spent time at Mount Rushmore, which is impressive in person. And in Philadelphia, walking through Independence Hall and seeing the Liberty Bell was like stepping back in time.
The Smithsonian Museums are on my list for sure. And Mount Rushmore has such an iconic presence. Were there any lesser-known spots that surprised you?
Definitely, one place that stood out was Sedona, Arizona. The red rock formations are stunning, and there's a unique spiritual vibe there. Another gem was Savannah, Georgia. The historic district is charming with its cobblestone streets and Spanish moss drape trees. And I love the Outer Banks in North Carolina for its beautiful beaches and lighthouses.
Sedona and Savannah sound like hidden treasures. It's amazing how each region has its own distinct flavor. Did you have any particularly memorable food experiences along the way?
Oh, the food was incredible. In New Orleans, I indulged in beignets at Café du Monde and enjoyed some amazing jazz music. Chicago deep dish pizza was everything I hoped it would be. And in Texas, I had some of the best barbecue of my life. Each place has its own culinary specialties that you just have to try.
I can only imagine how delicious all those local specialties must have been. As we start to wrap up, what would you say was the most impactful part of your journey?
The most impactful part was definitely the people I met along the way. Everyone was so welcoming and eager to share their stories and local tips. It reminded me that travel is not just about the destinations, but also about the connections you make and the experiences you share.
That's a wonderful takeaway. Travel really does have a way of bringing people together. Julia, thank you so much for sharing your incredible journey with us today. Any final thoughts for our listeners who might be planning their own trips?
My advice would be to embrace the adventure and be open to new experiences. There's so much beauty and diversity in America, and every place has something unique to offer. Don't just stick to the well-known spots. Explore off the beaten path as well, and most importantly, enjoy every moment.
Absolutely. Julia, let's dive a bit deeper into some of those off the beaten path places you mentioned. Were there any hidden gems that you feel are underrated but definitely worth visiting?
Definitely, one place that comes to mind is Asheville, North Carolina. It's nestled in the Blue Ridge Mountains and has a vibrant art scene, amazing local breweries, and beautiful hiking trails. The Biltmore Estate there is also stunning. Another underrated spot is the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. It's so serene with its dense forests, waterfalls, and stunning coastline along Lake Superior.
Asheville sounds like a perfect blend of nature and culture. And the Upper Peninsula must be a paradise for outdoor enthusiasts. Did you have any standout experiences in those places?
In Asheville, I loved exploring the local art galleries and attending a live music performance in one of the cozy venues downtown. The atmosphere is very creative and laid back. As for the Upper Peninsula, kayaking on Lake Superior was an unforgettable experience. The water is so clear, and the scenery is just breathtaking. I also visited Pictured Rocks National Lakeshore, which has some of the most beautiful cliff formations and beaches I've ever seen.
Kayaking on Lake Superior sounds incredible. It's amazing how many unique experiences you can have in these lesser-known destinations. Were there any small towns or communities that left a lasting impression on you?
Yes, a couple of small towns that really stood out were Sedona in Arizona and Marfa in Texas. Sedona's red rock landscapes are truly magical, and there's a strong sense of community there, with local artists and spiritual retreats. Marfa, on the other hand, is a tiny town in the middle of the desert, known for its minimalist art installations and the mysterious Marfa lights. Both places had a unique charm and a slower pace of life that was refreshing.
Marfa is known for its quirky art scene, right? It must have been fascinating to see that contrast of art and desert. Speaking of unique experiences, did you encounter any unexpected surprises or challenges during your travels?
Oh, definitely. One of the biggest surprises was the sheer diversity of landscapes and cultures within the same country. From the deserts of Arizona to the lush forests of the Pacific Northwest, every region felt like a different world. As for challenges, there were a few moments of culture shock, like adjusting to the different pace of life in rural areas compared to big cities. But those challenges were part of the adventure and helped me grow as a traveler.
That's a great perspective. Overcoming those challenges can really add to the richness of the travel experience. Did you have any favorite cultural festivals or events that you attended?
Yes, I had the chance to attend the Albuquerque International Balloon Fiesta in New Mexico. Seeing hundreds of colorful hot air balloons filling the sky at sunrise was a truly magical experience. I also attended Mardi Gras in New Orleans, which was an explosion of music, parades, and vibrant costumes. Both events were incredible and gave me a deep appreciation for the local cultures and traditions.
The balloon fiesta must have been spectacular, and Mardi Gras is definitely on many people's bucket lists. It sounds like you really immerse yourself in the local cultures. Were there any interactions with locals that stood out to you?
Absolutely. One memorable interaction was in a small diner in the heart of Tennessee. I struck up a conversation with an older couple who had lived in the area their entire lives. They shared stories about the history of the town and their favorite spots to visit. It was heartwarming to see their pride and love for their community. Another memorable moment was joining a traditional Native American ceremony in New Mexico, which was a profound and moving experience.
Those personal connections can really enrich a travel experience. Hearing stories and participating in local traditions provides a deeper understanding of a place. As we wrap up, do you have any advice for someone planning a similar cross-country trip?
My biggest piece of advice would be to plan, but also leave room for spontaneity. Some of the best experiences I had were unplanned detours or recommendations from locals. Also, make sure to balance visiting popular tourist spots with exploring lesser-known areas. And don't be afraid to step out of your comfort zone, whether it's trying new foods, engaging with locals, or taking on an adventurous activity.
That's fantastic advice, Julia. Thank you so much for sharing your journey with us today. It's been a pleasure hearing about your adventures and insights. For our listeners, we hope you're inspired to explore and discover the beauty and diversity of America. Until next time, keep your spirit of adventure alive.
Absolutely. One memorable interaction was in a small diner in the heart of Tennessee. I struck up a conversation with an older couple who had lived in the area their entire lives. They shared stories about the history of the town and their favorite spots to visit. It was heartwarming to see their pride and love for their community. Another memorable moment was joining a traditional Native American ceremony in New Mexico, which was a profound and moving experience.
Those personal connections can really enrich a travel experience. Hearing stories and participating in local traditions provides a deeper understanding of a place. As we wrap up, do you have any advice for someone planning a similar cross-country trip?
My biggest piece of advice would be to plan, but also leave room for spontaneity. Some of the best experiences I had were unplanned detours or recommendations from locals. Also, make sure to balance visiting popular tourist spots with exploring lesser-known areas. And don't be afraid to step out of your comfort zone, whether it's trying new foods, engaging with locals, or taking on an adventurous activity.
Thanks everyone, bye for today.